Let's get it, man. I know what time it is. Welcome to the new revamp, Walk the Line, where I'm your host, OG Chris Murray. Man, and we're going to take a deep dive into these week 4 DML Golden Picks, man. It's been a while, so let's shake the dust off and let's dive right into these week 4 Golden Picks. All right, man, topping the list, we have Marley and the Detroit Lions versus Emerald, those Green Bay Packers. Now, man, if you was looking at this Lions team, man, with all these holes due to injuries, this probably would have been a closer matchup if they had their whole complete pod. But however, with the way that the Emerald and these Packers are clicking with Jordan Love and this wide receiver group who seem so well experienced, it's hard to pick against the Packers. So my lock for week 4, first lock for week 4 is the Packers getting a W going on to week 5. Moving on next, we have Noop and those Atlanta Falcons versus Bruce and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, looking at this game, you have thought that Bijan Robinson would have been the guy who kind of made the Atlanta Falcons take that leap to being a contender this cycle. However, man, for the first 3 weeks, this guy has been flat out ghost. And I feel like the type of user that Bruce is on the offensive side, he's going to definitely make sure that your number one threat is a non-factor. And also, too, the way that the Falcons secondary has been getting carved up. This week he gets Sunshine and he gets Calvin Ridley, who's a guy that's definitely going to look for some revenge against those Atlanta Falcons. So my next lock pick is the Jaguars getting the W. Moving on next, you got tight work in the Miami Dolphins versus SJ and the Buffalo Bills. Now, looking at this matchup on paper, you could have easily by far felt like this was going to be a potential DML game of the week. However, the way that these Bills been playing throughout these first couple weeks, they need to be placed on the back of a milk carton because they have been completely MIA. Josh Allen, MIA. The loaded offensive weapons with Stephon Diggs, MIA. So this is going to be a tough matchup, man. And they're getting a blazing hot Miami Dolphins team who's clicking on both sides of the ball. Tyreek Cheetah Hill and that Tua connection is deadly, and I feel like this week is definitely going to continue. Tight work, getting a W, going on to week number 5. Moving on next, we have a some win for true talent in those Vikings due to C-Rod being out of town. So let's jump to that next matchup with Vandy Champ and those Baltimore Ravens versus Expert and those Cleveland Browns. Now we're getting 2 users who's coming into this matchup with a top 5 ranked defense. So this is where force meets force, okay? So this is going to have to be a chess match, and whatever user seems to be able to find a chink in the other guy's armor is going to lock this game up. And I feel like with the experience that Experts has playing top users in the DML, I feel like he's going to be the guy to get the W. So I'm locked in with those Browns getting the W. Moving on next, we have the big homie in the Pittsburgh Steelers versus JB and those Houston Texans. Now, for some odd reason, JB for each week has been right there at the finish line. You know, some games he managed to get over the finish line, but however, last week he kind of fell short. So I feel like coming into this matchup, knowing that the Steelers will be without Najee Harris, I feel like it's going to take a little bit of weight off his shoulders and allow him to be able to kind of get in his flow and not overthink it. So with this week, I'm locked in with the Houston Texans coming out, simple offensive game plan, defense being able to blitz the quarterback and make Pickett's think and take away, of course, whatever backup running back or whatever rushing attack they think they're going to come into this matchup with, and locking in a W going into week 5. Moving on next, we got Never Quit in those Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus T-Pain and the New Orleans Saints. Now, the Bucs have to figure out one thing and one thing only, and that's putting points up on the board. Because listen, young fella, averaging 7 points per game is not going to cut it in the DML. It's not going to cut it in any league. So y'all got to figure out how to get the offense going. I understand that you was facing the injury bug out there, but that's not an excuse. However, you're getting T-Pain with a nice New Orleans Saints defense who has shown some signs of them being able to be a potential top 10 defense in the DML, with the shows that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are showing on the offense side of the ball. I feel like T-Pain should definitely lock in this W, so I'm locked in with the New Orleans Saints getting a W going into week 5. Moving on next, we got Taz and those Cincinnati Bengals versus Flair and the Tennessee Titans. Now, the offensive struggles continue to hit the Bengals hard, but this week it should feel like Taz should at least attempt to get his rhythm back, facing Flair and the struggling Tennessee Titans, who seems cannot find no identity on either side of the ball. I feel like Taz in this matchup should definitely come out, get Joe Mixon going, make the Tennessee Titans defense want to respect the rushing attack and get that Joe Burrow and that Jamar Chase connection going. So I'm locked in with the Bengals getting a W on the road going into Week 5. Moving on, next you got Centaur and the Los Angeles Chargers versus Omatic and those Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this game right here, Josh Jacobs, man, he's been running the ball like a guy on a mission. Now, I don't know what that mission is, but he has been literally playing lights out football from week 1 up until this point. Now, with guys like Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and a young supporting cast on that defense side of the ball with the Los Angeles Chargers, I feel like this is the game right here where you guys are going to have to step up and move as one, because Josh Jacobs is a guy, like I said, is running like a man on a mission, and he's not playing no games. So if Centaur can figure out how to slow down this Las Vegas Raiders rushing attack, I feel like it's going to be a long day, because outside of Devontae Adams, I don't really see like a number 1, number 2, or like another supporting wide receiver that can kind of, make this a tough game. So I feel like if you sit there and lock in on 2 things, slowing down Devontae Adams, you're not going to lock him up, and slowing down his rushing attack, you can put yourself in the best position to win. However, man, I'm going with the guy who's running like a man on a mission, with Josh Jacobs getting the W for his squad going into Week 5. Omatic locked in. Moving on, next we have Sweets and the New England Patriots versus Hot Tub and those Dallas Cowboys. Now, this right here is 2 dynasties who's used to winning and 2 users who's used to winning. 2 top tier, at least top 5 users of DML, all-time DML users. Sweets, even though the stat lines and the ratings might not have this game equally matched, when it comes to pure stick skills, this game is evenly matched by far. This is going to be a game that Sweets is going to want to come out and win, due to the fact of, once again, this is probably by far one of the top 5 DML users of all time that he's facing this week. So, can Sweets get it done? I feel like yes, Sweets is going to come out with a solid game plan to kind of put this Dallas Cowboys defense is top 4 right now in the DML at causing turnovers, getting after the quarterback. This is going to be a tough one, man, but I feel like Sweets is going to come out and put together a solid game plan. So I'm going to lock in with my first upset pick of Week 4, which I feel like really is an upset, taking Sweets, getting the W on the road in Dallas. Moving on, next we got under 2 rated in the Washington Commanders versus Beano and those Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this game right here is going to be a very interesting game, because I feel like this game is going to set the tone of who's going to be coming out of this division, because I feel like this division, as far as the NFC East, is going to at least have 2 teams inside of the playoff each single year. So this right here is going to kind of solidify that number 2 spot, because by far right now the heavy hitter is the Hot Tub and the Dallas Cowboys. So this right here is going to kind of solidify who will be the second person, or second user coming out of this division and potentially challenging Hot Tub for that division crown each year. Now, Bino took a tough loss 2 weeks ago, and one of the key things that caused him to lose that game was giving up too many rushing yards on the ground. He has a y'all thought I was talking about Josh Jacobs a couple minutes ago. This young man for the Commanders, Robinson, is running through anything that seems to get in his way. So Bino's going to have to figure out how to shut down the rushing attack of the Washington Commanders and figure out how to get started fast, because this Eagles offense is coming out, starting off slow, and find themselves deep into the game trying to get rhythm. This is not the team that you want to try to do this with. So with this week, I'm taking another upset pick, which I don't really feel like it's an upset pick, but I'm taking the Washington Commanders getting a W, going to the city of brotherly love, locking in. Moving on next, we have It's Eric Yo and the Arizona Cardinals versus Andy and the San Francisco 49ers. Now, if this is the week that you guys have anybody that is affiliated or associated with the Arizona Cardinals on your fantasy team, you need to bench the team, you need to bench the coach, you need to bench everything. That's not nothing against It's Eric Yo, but this is just going to be too much for him to handle. He's getting a top 10 DML user with a defense who's cooking on all cylinders, so I feel like it's going to be too much for him to handle. By far, this is one of them games where he just got to come out, man, and just try his best to not let the doors be blown off the hinges. But with my pick, I'm locked in with Andy and the San Francisco 49ers getting a W at home. Moving on next, we have King Vitamin and the Kansas City Chiefs versus AJ and those New York Jets. Now, this is a week where AJ, man, is limited without Sauce Gardner. You know, the way that Kadarius Toney is playing and the way that, you know, Vitamin has that balanced offensive style gameplay going right now, I feel like this is a game that Sauce is going to be needed in. However, AJ, I feel like is going to put together a great defensive strategy to where as though he can kind of contain Toney and make Vitamin have to lean on his running game, which that favors him with that solid defensive front forward. So with this pick right here is going to definitely be another good AFC matchup, but I got to lock in, and I'm going with the Jets getting the W at home, feeding off that home crowd energy, man, making or trying to make Vitamin a one-dimensional offense, leaning on that rushing attack, which favors that Jets defensive front four, getting a W at home. Moving on next, we got my Seattle Seahawks versus Skill Trade and those New York Giants. This game right here is going to be a good game because he has a secondary that can match up with each weapon that I have at the wide receiver group. So I'm going to have to figure out how to come out and not fall victim to the trap, man, and just take care of the ball, take what Skill Trade gives to me, and I will never pick against myself. So I'm definitely locked in with my Seattle Seahawks getting the W on the road. Now, we added a new segment to the show where we're going to break down who to start this week and who to sit this week. So we're going to jump into who you should start this week if you're tuned in to watching any user play this week in the DML. And the first thing that tops the list, of course, is Andy and the San Francisco 49ers versus It's Eric Yo. The Cards have a turnover curse in Arizona, and this is going to be the week that if you decide to pick any defense as far as it's going to finish at the top of that list, I feel like definitely it's going to be Andy and those 49ers getting it done. Next, Joe Mixon, the running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. I feel like the way that Flair defense is playing right now and the way that Flair is going to have to try to focus in on slowing down Jamar Chase is going to open up running lanes for Joe Mixon to get through and kind of put the Cincinnati Bengals offense on his back. Moving on next, quarterback position, Trevor Lawrence for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like I mentioned before when I was breaking down this game, I feel like the way that the Atlanta Falcons secondary has been getting carved up. You got Sunshine coming there this week, who I feel like by far is the best quarterback that this defense has faced this season yet. And I feel like he's going to be clicking on all cylinders, and Bruce is going to put the ball inside of Trevor Lawrence's hand, and he's going to do exactly what he's going to do, bring a lot of sunshine to the Atlanta Falcons secondary. Moving on next, wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Even though that this was a forced win for true talent in those Vikings, I felt like Justin Jefferson was going to get off in this game because due to the fact of the Panthers secondary giving up 100+ yards to mediocre level wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, of course, is a different animal on a different level. I feel like he definitely going to get off in this game. Next, Tyreek Hill versus SJ and the Buffalo Bills. Is there any more need to say? The Cheetah has been balling out already 200-yard plus games this season. We're only in week 4, so I feel like definitely he's going to be the guy who's going to tear this Buffalo defense up. Now, let's get into the more interesting part. Who you need to sit this week? Like I mentioned before, Josh Allen, man. The way that this guy has been turning over the ball, this is not the week that you want to start Josh Allen because he's going up against a well-experienced user by tight work, and he's going up against a loaded secondary. Josh Allen is not the quarterback to start this week, man, if you're looking for a quarterback. Moving on next. Even though I mentioned the way that Robinson has been running the ball for the Washington Commanders, this is the week where those big guys like Fletcher Cox, Davis, and that first round pick for the Philadelphia Eagles is going to have to be clicking and moving as one on that defensive front four. All right, I feel like Bino is going to come up and enter this game with the mindset of, I'm Bino and I'm here to show this division that this is mine. So I would not start Robinson this week. Moving on next, like I mentioned before, Kadarius Toney. The way that, even though AJ will be limited and he will not have Sauce Gardner, I feel like he still is going to figure out a way how to make this game become one-dimensional by taking away Vitamin's number one threat, which is Kadarius Toney, and making this a run-heavy style offense, which tips in his favor because he has a solid defensive front four. So I would not start the Kadarius Toney this week. Moving on next to another running back, which is Bijan Robinson. Listen, this is another guy who has been MIA all season. Okay, MIA. So with that being said, the way that Bruce plays, Bruce is going to always take away your number one X factor, and this guy has not been an X factor, but I don't see him allowing this guy to get his first game off by running up and down the field. I feel like Bruce is definitely going to take him out of the game, man. So I will not start him. And last but not least, Lamar Jackson versus this top 5 expert Cleveland Browns defense. I feel like, I'm telling you right now, Action Jackson is going to be missing in action. This is going to be a game where experts are going to try to cause a lot of turnovers. So that means a big no for Lamar Jackson this week. Now, I just went over all the lock picks. I went over who to start, who to sit, drop who you think you're going to win these games this week, drop who you feel like shouldn't be starting this week, drop who you feel like should be sitting this week. I'm your host, OG Chris Murray. I appreciate y'all diving in, tuning into the show. Till next time.